I imagine we're probably looking for like an 80% move or something like that. Where does that put Bitcoin? Somewhere in the mid $70,000 territory. Again, this is, further out, but we can definitely do a bit of a forecast on this one. And what do you know? Welcome back to Elliot Trade's channel. I'm your host Krown today with some more astrology for men, or technical analysis as we all know it. And before we get into it today and follow up on yesterday's price action analysis, I do want to say a massive thank you for all of the feedback in the comment section from yesterday's video. That was excellent to see, really, really helpful, and major appreciation for that as well. That was very, very kind, a lot of the sentiments shared right there. Anyways, with that in mind, this is, by the way, just my flow analysis right here. All good. We're not going to get too much into that. We want to focus on what we spoke about yesterday, of which we're getting the breakout that we spoke about, that we were looking for. And let's follow up on that. So we'll go into our charts over here, start off with the 4-hour today, as that is the most relevant one actually right now, as we do have a nice closure above the top side resistance that we were looking for yesterday. Sorry, ignore the squiggly red line right here. That was something that I did on my own channel just as like a interpretation of what probably happens over the weekend. We can actually get rid of that right now. And actually, this would be a really good time to kind of address what happened intraday yesterday on Sunday, because for myself, I came from traditional market land. And when I first came into cryptocurrency land and I saw stuff like this, it was like an immediate signal. Oh, okay, we're topping out right now. It's a little bit of a local high. Let's get short, look for a little bit of downside. And it took me a few months to actually understand what was going on during these. And it's really a liquidity grab is what it is. And this is certainly a game of liquidity in cryptocurrency land, especially as, actually, hold on, let me just close this trade over here. It's early morning right there. Okay, and good. All right, sweet. Okay, we're ready to roll once again. All right, so with that in mind, how can you defend against these sort of, essentially stop hunts and liquidity grabs? Well, it always comes down to trendness, in my opinion. And what do we have right here? Well, Bitcoin did put in a pretty nasty downside move, especially on Stamp, by the way. Major wick to the downside right there. This is why I operate off of closures, as you can see, because not only did it save you from not longing this first hunt to the upside right here, but on the downside right here, you can see that Bitcoin obviously never closed below our major bottom side area. And more importantly, and what was very telling about this, is that what happened right here, we just have another higher low. Trend. Let the trend be your friend. And in this case, it looks like sellers are going to stop defending about 55,800 or so. So, of course, fake outs do happen in markets. And in this case, how would I sort of judge a fake out in this case? Well, I would want to see a 4-hour closure below the same area that we were looking for yesterday, 55,800. At that point, that's going to be no longer looking for the breakout targets of $59,000 to low $60,000 territory. I would be looking for another run towards the bottom side of this current consolidation phase right here. And then same sort of interpretation if we were to actually break it. Any sort of a closure below 53,750, or if you just want to call it 54,000 bucks and make it nice and rounded even, that's fine as well. I'd be essentially having the same interpretation of it. However, my downside targets would no longer be 52,000 bucks. They would be more around about 50 to 51,000 bucks actually. As if you were to get a fake out right here, it's probably going to be nasty. Anyways, with that in mind, for right now, things are looking good. Of course, let's follow up on BBWP, our volatility-based indicator, and what do we see? We see it ticking up right here. So yesterday we were at about 11 percentile. Now we are all the way up at about 32.5 percentile. This is good. We want to see this get now above 50 percentile right here. And that essentially suggests that the move is once again trending, as we do see higher lows. We already have a higher high right here. This, you might even call this an ascending triangle. In fact, you could certainly call it, again, not a humongous pattern trader myself, but the measured move off of it is going to be essentially the same thing as what we spoke about from yesterday. So just another point of confluence right there. Good stuff. And even my momentum offset over here, which I call the jewel, is about to get a nice positive and an upside signal, it looks like, with any sort of a closure on this next one above about basically here. So looking good right there. Anyways, let's go over to our secondary charts as well. And let's see what else lines up with this. And in fact, look at this. The topside Bollinger Band on the daily specifically is where? 59,000 bucks. That is in line with the measure move that we had from yesterday. Sorry, this is going to be on our higher term timeframes right here. Pull this out. And there we go. And I also forgot, also forgot to do a little bit of a Fibonacci extension from this little base. And that can give us some nice perspective targets. You can see that that's going to line up very, 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 very likely. Yes, indeed it will. With a 2-spot 618 right around your last major breakdown area. So I always like these areas for, potential local highs, or at least stopping points for the current rally. and probably reconsolidates around there. That was also, if I recall, right around the last of our higher value nodes to the upside for the volume profile, as you can see right there. And so I really do like this area. Anywhere between about $59,000 and let's call it low $60,000 territory is fair game for this. And at that point, I would be cognizant that Bitcoin is very likely to put in, another medium-term consolidation and very likely try that higher low that we're going to be looking for at some point, as we actually still do not have that right here. We have higher highs, obviously, so that is good, and all higher term timeframes are bullish and in uptrends, just the daily has not followed through with that just yet. And what makes me essentially biased towards that? Well, if we go back on over here to the daily BBWP, you can see that we are, very much heated up right here. And typically speaking, Bitcoin does like to put in local highs or local lows when we do get above 90 percentile, essentially. So I don't think that this rally has too much more legs on it before a more prolonged consolidation. But ultimately, it is good. Again, very good long term, as long as we are above, especially $49,000, or if you just want to call it 50, that's completely fine as well. One and the same, pretty much at this, at this point. So looking good right there. Anyways, on top of that, let's go back to our secondary charts right here. Did we fulfill the criteria for the weekly closure? That was the most important thing that we were looking for yesterday. And actually, no, technically not. Technically we did not. Did close below $55,000 and did close below the topside Bollinger Band right there. That's actually fine in this case, really. Closing this close to it is just going to allow the next week to probably go into trending motion here again. So we'll have the same sort of interpretation of this. Guess where the top side is? Right around $59,000. So maybe a little bit of short-term caution around 58 perhaps. However, same sort of interpretation for this one going into the end of this next week, but that's another 7 days. Of course, the 5-day is something that I follow as well. In fact, this is an aside. I actually think that the 5 day is a little bit better than the weekly, and that's going to have a chance to do that a little bit sooner on tomorrow night's closure, that is, at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Any sort of a closure above that same sort of level. And well, we can start to talk about targets into the low $60,000 territory and probably sustaining around there as well. And of course, we actually did not talk about this yesterday, but both the weekly and the bi-weekly closed, and we have confirmed reversals on these, even if you're the most conservative trader of all time, as we did close on new highs on the bi-weekly. And of course, the weekly did the same thing as well. So we are in uptrends on all higher term timeframes. Very good. Just waiting for that daily to very likely pop down at some point, put in a higher low. But first things first, I want to see it confirm a local high. We do not have that just yet, obviously, as right now we just have continuation. So looking very good on that one. And of course, going back into it, I want to reiterate the stance over here just because it is very important. And that is, unless a Bitcoin pops back down below 55.8, closes a 4 hour below there, I don't really have any major issues with this as it is right now. So what we can do now is we can go check out the underlying market dynamics and then look at momentum. In fact, let's look at momentum first and see where those pivots are aligning. So we'll go over here. And what I use for this is stochastic, essentially just a momentum oscillator. Nothing too special about it, but basically kind of gives you a bit of a bias on current direction and the momentum underlying it. And then also have a volatility indicator alongside of it as well. And the idea is I want to see volatility essentially expanding alongside momentum pointing towards, a very obvious direction. In this case, it's coming from very low levels. That is good. This one's also ranked in a percentile format. And then obviously this is your stoch right here. So on the 4 hour, we remain with upside posturing as long as we're above 55,850. That is actually really good right there because it adds further confluence to that being a good pivot. As long as Bitcoin is above there, path of least resistance is to the upside. $58,000 short term, maybe a short term pullback right around there. Ultimately, though, looking somewhere around 59 to low $60,000 territory. Now we can go to the medium term timeframes and see what they're aligning with as well. And 12 hours actually freshly pointed up. I really like this time frame, by the way. In the critical zone, that is completely fine. I'm only worried when it comes down below the critical zone, contrary to common opinion, actually. And that would be remaining with upside posturing as long as above 55,200 or so. And then the daily right here, we see that this one will remain with upside posturing as long as above 56,300. And then actually the 2 days going to be closing today as well. And this is, well, nowhere near 47,800 or so. So not any major considerations right there. So all looks well and good. Again, keep the pivots in mind. There is a non-zero probability of fake outs, obviously, and but just, you know, have your risk in mind. And all of that is all well and good. And of course, same interpretation of 53,700 to the downside right here. Now, I do want to end on this note as well, just kind of in line with, you know, I don't think that this rally has too much more juice before a more prolonged consolidation. And where am I getting that from? Well, also the global leverage ratios and global open interest. So I'm going to remove my face for a second here. And the open interest is actually starting to rapidly approach the same levels that we saw from September, you know, 7th dump. And of course, you know, our April highs and all of this distributive phase over here as well. And, you know, it's no secret that this market is massively over leveraged. So at some point, we're probably going to see a washing of that. I suspect that's at the point when we're probably going to pop down, scare everyone, and probably put in a higher low on the daily for Bitcoin. And in my opinion, that's probably going to be a major opportunity. So again, it depends where we sort of top out first to judge where those higher lows may come. But let's just kind of play around with numbers now that we have these in mind. And I also should denote that, of course, the global leverage ratio creeps upwards and onwards as well. Not necessarily at the same levels that we have seen on other major pivots, but it's definitely getting up there alongside funny rates, which are also trending up as well. So you are paying more and more to hold your longs. So let's say that Bitcoin does reach basically around 60,000 bucks. At that point, could we judge some potential pullback targets from there? Yeah, very likely, yes. In this case, I would be doing something like so, and I'd be looking probably somewhere around the 0.55 or the 382, and that would be low $50,000 territory, maybe even as low as 49,000 bucks. But ultimately, I would like to take it one step at a time, and we're kind of getting a little bit too ahead of ourselves right here. There is one last thing that I want to close on here, because this is, I think, rather exciting actually. And what is that? That's going to be the 5-day yet again. So I'm going to bring up my volatility indicator. And what do we see right here? We see BBWP on a 5-day, a very powerful time frame, by the way, is getting towards the same levels that we saw in July, late July, in early May, in early October of 2020, and early July of 2020 as well. What do all those have in common? Well, let's see. This area over here, that was your last bull trap from 30,000 bucks all the way up to 50,000 essentially. About a 60% move. Not bad, you might say. What about this one over here? This one obviously coming to the downside, but getting the last lower high, 57,700, all the way down to 30,000 bucks. 47% down. Not bad. What about this baby over here as I put on log scale? This one coming out of this October base and almost immediately 80% up, and then obviously just continues onwards and forwards from there. So pretty damn good. And then this baby over here, we do see 9,000 straight up to 12,500 bucks, a 40% move. So on the lower end, probably looking at about a 40% move from that base. On the upper end, probably looking at, well, potentially multiple 100%. I mean, at this point, you're in blue sky breakouts. So let's just kind of play around with numbers here and see what we got. 40% puts Bitcoin at that $60,000 territory. I like that, but here's the thing. BBWP is just expanding off the lows right now. So do I think that it's going to stop there? Probably unlikely. It probably does go for a decent amount more. So realistically, what are we looking for? Well, I imagine we're probably looking for like an 80% move or something like that. Where does that put Bitcoin? Somewhere in the mid $70,000 territory. Again, this is, you know, further out, but we can definitely do a bit of a forecast on this one. And what do you know? The 2-spot extension is 75,500. Interesting. Very rarely do I see things top out around there, but I would be looking at that as a pivot. Long term, probably looking somewhere up here. Again, that's probably, you know, a month or two down the road, but overall, very, very good setup right here for the long term. So please understand the different interpretations of all of the different timeframes. Short-term timeframes, fine, as long as we are again above 55,800. Below there, I would look for another run to the bottom side of this consolidation. And then I'd actually look for this as a toppy formation and consider it a toppy formation if we do start to close below 53, let's just call it 54,000 bucks, looking for moves down to 51 to 52,000 bucks. Until that happens, I'm looking for the path of least resistance to the upside. At some point, Bitcoin's very likely to put in a bit of a daily high, work its way back down, put in a higher low, and that's really at the point where I think we're going to see something rather interesting. So that probably takes us through the next few weeks. Hopefully this was in some way helpful. I'm going to be signing off now, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.